Elena Martinez trembled in front of the executive office door. Her sweaty palms gripped the magnetic pass that had just refused to work for the third time. Was it already over? The cold light of the Mercury Tower corridor cast her fragile shadow on the Italian marble. 53 years old, 22 years of impeccable service, and everything was crumbling on a November morning. The diagnosis had fallen 3 weeks earlier like a guillotine blade. Multiple sclerosis. Those 3 words had shattered her universe. But Elena had kept hope. She had always been a fighter. Mrs. Martinez, Veronica's voice, the executive assistant, made her jump. The tone was different. More distant, more professional. "Mr. Davis is waiting for you." Elena nodded, unable to utter a word. Her legs could barely carry her. The first symptoms were already manifesting. This crushing fatigue, these uncontrollable tremors, this vision that blurred at times. How would she tell her daughter that she might lose her job? Isabella was preparing her master's in medicine. Tuition fees already swallowed half her salary. The door opened with a creak that sounded sinister to her. Mr. Davis didn't even look up from his screen. This man she had watched grow within the company, whom she had helped during his first important presentations, wouldn't even give her a glance. "Sit down, Elena." The first name without the usual Mrs. Bad sign. Very bad sign. "We need to talk about your situation." Elena felt her heart racing, the words stuck in her throat. She who had cleaned these offices for more than 2 decades, who knew every corner of this company, every habit of its occupants, suddenly found herself a stranger in this place she considered her second home. "I received the medical report you submitted to Human Resources." Of course, she had followed procedure, informed her hierarchy of her health condition. Like the model employee she had always been, "Your illness will require accommodations that we cannot afford." The world collapsed around her. These words she had dreaded for 3 weeks had just fallen with the coldness of a verdict. "Mr. Davis, .. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please, .. But he continued, imperturbable, consulting his documents as if it were just another file. "The constraints related to your health condition are incompatible with your functions. We must consider an amicable separation." Amicable separation. These words sounded like a sentence of social death. At 53, with a chronic illness, who would want her? Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She saw Isabella again, radiant, the day she had been accepted into medical school. "Mom, you sacrificed your life for me. I'm going to become a doctor and make you proud." How could she explain that everything was falling apart? "Mr. Davis, I beg you, .. The words came out despite herself, charged with 22 years of devotion. Sleepless nights spent cleaning these offices, sacrificed weekends to ensure emergency services. "I can continue working. The symptoms are still mild. I can adapt, .. He finally looked up at her. His gaze was empty of any compassion. "Elena, be realistic. Your productivity will decline. We cannot afford to carry employees in difficulty." Carry employees in difficulty. As if she had become a burden overnight. As if these 22 years of loyalty no longer mattered. "I have a daughter to support. She's studying medicine. Without my salary, .. double quotes, her voice broke. She who had always been dignified, who had never asked for favors, found herself begging to keep the job that had become her whole life. "We're offering a decent severance package. 3-month salary. 3 months rebuild a life at 53 with a progressive disease." Elena felt tears rising. These tears she had been holding back for 3 weeks, since the diagnosis announcement, since she knew her life was tipping into uncertainty. "Please, Mr. Davis, give me a chance. I can prove that I can still be useful to this company." The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. In this silence, Elena could already hear the echo of her footsteps in the empty apartment. The sound of the door closing on Isabella returning from university. The anxiety of impossible month thens ahead. What do you do when you lose everything at once? When illness strikes and the working world rejects you? When those for whom you gave Everything abandon you at the moment you need them most. Elena Martinez was about to discover how far a mother's desperation can go. When she's ready to do anything to protect her child's future. To understand the magnitude of the drama unfolding in this office, we must go back 22 years. Elena Martinez was 31 when she first pushed through the doors of Mercury Tower. A young single mother, she was fleeing an abusive husband with her daughter Isabella, then 5 years old. The cleaning job wasn't a dream, it was a necessity. A lifeline to start a new life away from violence and fear. But Elena had transformed this necessity into a vocation. From the first days, she had distinguished herself. Arriving systematically 1 hour before her shift began, she knew every employee's habits. Mr. Lewis from accounting liked to find his plant slightly moved toward the window. Mrs. Chen from communications appreciated having her files perfectly aligned in a precise order that Elena had memorized. These details, these small attentions, had made her much more than a simple cleaning lady. She had become the silent guardian of everyone's well-being. Years had passed. Isabella grew up while Elena worked. Often, the little girl would come wait for her in the lobby after school, doing her homework on the leather benches while her mother finished her tasks. "Mum, why do you work so late?" "So you can have everything you need, sweetheart, so you can study and become someone important." Isabella had grown up with this promise. She had seen her mother get up at 5 in the morning, come home, exhausted. In the evening, sacrifice her weekends to ensure emergency services. But Elena had never complained. On the contrary, she was proud of her work. "I don't save lives like doctors," she would tell Isabella. "But I create an environment where people can work well. That's important too." This philosophy had shaped Isabella's character. A brilliant student, she had always been first in her class. Her motivation, making her mother proud, and finally giving her the life she deserved. Meanwhile, in the floors of Mercury Tower, a young dynamic executive was climbing the ranks. Peter Davis had started as an intern in the marketing department. Ambitious, intelligent, he knew how to get noticed. Elena remembered him when he was still nervous before important presentations. She had seen him rehearse his speeches in the conference room, late at night, when she came to clean. "You should go home, Mr. Davis. It's late." "Thank you, Elena. This presentation is crucial for my career. You're going to make it. You work harder than all the others." These encouragements from a cleaning lady had touched the young man. For a few years, they had maintained this benevolent relationship. Elena had become a reassuring figure in the company. But success changes. Peter Davis had become Deputy General Manager, then General Manager. With responsibilities came pressures, financial constraints, the obligation for results. The human element had taken second place. Elena had witnessed this transformation without really understanding it. The man she once encouraged had become one who scrutinized every budget line, who looked for savings everywhere, who considered employees as adjustment variables. But she kept hope. She still believed that somewhere, behind this professional mask, the humanity she had known survived. Isabella had become an exceptional young woman. At 27, she excelled in her medical studies. Specialized in neurology, she was particularly interested in degenerative diseases. Irony of fate. "Mum, you've always been my hero," she had told her the day she was accepted into her master's program. "You proved that you can succeed in life even when you start from nothing," Elena had cried. That day, tears of joy and pride. Everything she had endured, all these sacrifices, finally made sense. But fate had other plans. The first symptoms had appeared discreetly. Unusual fatigue, some tremors, sporadic balance problems. Elena had first thought of overwork. Years of intense physical work leave traces. But the symptoms had worsened. Medical consultations had followed one another. Examinations, analyses, Mr. Riz. Then the diagnosis had fallen. Multiple sclerosis. Progressive form. "Mum, we're going to fight together," Isabella had said, hugging her mother tightly. My specialization will help me understand your disease. We're not alone. Elena had found comfort in these words. Her daughter was going to become a doctor. She understood the stakes, the possible treatments, the evolution of the disease. But they had to hold on financially until Isabella finished her studies. 2 more years, 2 crucial years. That's why Elena had made the courageous decision to inform her employer of her health condition. She hoped for understanding, perhaps some job accommodations. She never imagined they could let her go after 22 years of impeccable service. Yet the signs were there. For several months, the atmosphere had changed in the company. Savings had become obsessive. Several older employees had been restructured. Efficiency took precedence over humanity. Elena should have suspected, but she still believed that her loyalty, her devotion, her 22 years of perfect service would protect her. She was discovering today how wrong she had been, in this office. Facing Peter Davis, who no longer even looked at her as a human being, Elena realized that the working world could be merciless with those who weaken. But she hadn't said her last word. A mother fighting for her child's future can draw from unsuspected resources. What followed would prove it. Mr. Davis, look at me. Elena had straightened in her chair. Her voice, trembling a few minutes earlier, had regained a strength she drew from her memories. Really, look at me. Peter Davis looked up, annoyed by this interruption. He had other files to handle, other decisions to make. This conversation had lasted long enough. Do you remember March 2015? The question surprised him. He frowned, searching his memory. The presentation for the Nexus Industries contract, Elena continued. You were sick, you had a fever. Your assistant was absent. Peter vaguely remembered. That was years ago. I had finished my shift, but I saw you in the conference room, rehearsing your presentation. You were sweating, coughing, you looked so vulnerable. Elena was standing now, approaching the desk. Her legs were trembling, but her determination was intact. I went to get you hot tea from the cafeteria. I stayed an extra hour to help you organize your documents. You had said to me, Elena, without you, I never would have made it. The general manager lowered his eyes. This memory surfaced despite himself. You got that contract? Your first big victory. It launched your career. Elena placed her hands on the desk, leaning slightly toward him. I'm not telling you this to blackmail you. I'm telling you because that day, you were human. You needed help, and someone was there for you. Her voice became softer, more personal. Today, I'm the one who needs help. Not from a boss, from a human being. Peter Davis shifted in his chair. This conversation was taking a turn he hadn't anticipated. Numbers, budgets, legal constraints, all of that was simple to manage. But these memories, this emotion, these 22 years of shared history. Elena, you don't understand the current constraints of the company. Then explain them to me. The simplicity of this request caught him off guard. We've lost 2 big contracts this year. Competition is fierce. We need to reduce our operating costs by 15%. And what do I represent in these costs? Peter consulted his documents. Your salary, social charges, sick leave to be expected. About $42,000 a year. $42,000. Elena repeated this sum, as if discovering her own market value. In 22 years, how much have I saved this company? Peter looked at her without understanding. The overtime I did for free when there was an emergency. The weekends I came to repair water leak damage. The times I noticed anomalies in the offices and prevented break-ins. Elena counted on her fingers. The day I discovered that Mr. Bertrand from IT was leaving confidential documents on his desk. I had warned you discreetly. That prevented an information leak that could have cost millions. Peter actually remembered this incident. Elena had been exemplarily discreet. Or when I noticed that the air conditioning was malfunctioning in the server room. My alert prevented a general breakdown that would have paralyzed the company for days. Each example hit home. Elena wasn't just a cleaning lady. She had become the company's eyes and ears, a vigilant guardian watching over everything. How much is this vigilance worth? Mr. Davis? How much is trust worth? The question hung in the air. Peter felt his accounting arguments losing strength against this human reality. But your illness, will progress, yes. The doctors are clear about that, but it progresses slowly. I still have years of effective work ahead of me. Elena took an envelope from her bag. I brought all my medical reports. Not just the diagnosis, all the details. She placed the documents on the desk. My disease manifests in flare-ups. Between flare-ups, I can be perfectly functional. With appropriate treatment, I can significantly slow its progression. Peter quickly scanned the documents. The medical vocabulary was foreign to him, but he understood the essentials. You see, currently, my symptoms are mild. I can continue working normally for several years. And if your condition worsens, then we'll see. Together, as a team. Elena sat back down, crossing her hands to hide their trembling. Mr. Davis, I'm 53 years old. Who's going to hire me with a chronic illness? You know that very well. Silence settled. Peter, indeed, knew the reality of the job market. At 50, with health problems, Elena would have little chance of finding stable employment. My daughter finishes her medical studies in 2 years. 2 years, Mr. Davis. After that, she can help me. But now, I need this job. Elena leaned toward him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Isabella is going to become a neurologist. She in diseases like mine. Do you know what that means to me? My daughter might contribute to treating people like me. The emotion in her voice was palpable. But for her to succeed, she needs me to hold on for 2 more years. Just 2 years. Peter Davis felt his resolve wavering. This woman wasn't asking for charity, she was asking for a chance to complete her life's project. Seeing her daughter succeed. You can't understand what this situation means to me, Elena continued. You've always had security. You grew up in a protected environment. You studied, you had choices. She paused. I never had choices. I fled an abusive husband with a little girl. This job was my only option. But I made something beautiful of it. I made it my pride. Peter looked at this woman who had worked in the shadows for 22 years. For the first time, he really saw Elena Martinez. Not the discreet cleaning lady who passed through the corridors, but the woman, the mother, the human being with her dreams and fears. I'm not asking you to keep an ineffective employee out of pity, Elena said, standing up. I'm asking you to trust the one who has never betrayed that trust in 22 years. She headed toward the door, then turned around one last time. You have the power to destroy my life today. But you also have the power to give me a chance to save it. The door closed softly behind her, leaving Peter Davis alone with his documents, his numbers, and a question that would haunt him. What is a human life really worth in the business world? 3 days passed without news. 3 days of anguish for Elena, who continued her work as if nothing had happened, but felt her colleagues' gazes weighing on her. Friday morning, Veronica called her to Peter Davis's office. Mrs. Martinez, the director, wishes to see you. Lena felt her heart racing. Was this the official announcement of her dismissal? Had she spent these 3 days hoping for nothing? She knocked on the door and entered. Peter Davis was on the phone, his back turned to her, looking out the large bay window overlooking the city. Yes, I've made my decision. No, I take full responsibility. The shareholders will understand. He hung up and turned toward Elena. His face was serious, but something had changed in his gaze. Sit down, Elena. This time he had used her first name with respect. I've thought about our conversation. I also did something I perhaps shouldn't have done. Elena frowned, worried. I called your daughter. Elena's blood froze. What had he said to Isabella? How had she reacted upon learning that her mother risked losing her job? Don't worry, Peter continued, seeing her paleness. I didn't reveal your situation to her. I introduced myself as an HR manager, verifying some information for your medical file. Elena didn't know whether to be relieved or angry. Your daughter talked to me about you for 20 minutes. Peter sat across from her, abandoning the protocol distance of his desk. Do you know what she told me? That you were the most courageous woman she knew. That you had sacrificed your life so she could study. That every evening, when she studied, she thought of you cleaning these offices to finance her studies. Elena felt tears rising. Hearing her daughter's words reported this way moved her deeply. She also told me something else. Something that really struck me. Peter got up and walked toward the window. She explained that her specialization in neurology was directly inspired by your example. That seeing her mother fight every day despite difficulties had made her want to treat people who suffer. He turned back toward Elena. And then she added something that made me think all night. Elena waited, hanging on his words. She told me, "My mother doesn't know it yet, but I'm preparing my thesis on supporting chronic patients in the workplace." She inspired this subject without knowing it. Thanks to her, I might help other people in her situation. Elena put her hand to her mouth. Isabella had never told her about this project. Your daughter finishes her studies in 2 years. That's correct, but she's already been accepted into a European research program on neurodegenerative diseases, a program that guarantees her a position and salary upon graduation. Elena didn't understand where he was going with this. What I mean, Elena, is that your sacrifice has already borne fruit. Your daughter will succeed. With or without your salary, she'll make it. Silence settled. Elena didn't know if this revelation was good or bad news. But that's not why I asked you to come. Peter returned to sit, pulled a file from his drawer. After hanging up with Isabella, I did something else. I went through your 22 years of service. Really went through them. Every report, every evaluation, every incident. He opened the file. Do you know how many times you've been on sick leave in 22 years? Elena shook her head. 4 times. 4 times in 22 years, for a total of 12 days. 12 days in more than 2 decades. He turned a page. Do you know how many unpaid overtime hours you've worked? Elena was beginning to understand where he was going. More than 1,800 hours, the equivalent of a year of free work. Peter closed the file and looked Elena straight in the eyes. I also calculated something else. If we had to replace everything you actually do in this company, cleaning, but also surveillance, vigilance, preventive maintenance, we'd need to hire part-time people. Elena sensed that something was about to shift. The cost of these 2 people, $68,000 a year, $26,000 more than your current salary. Peter stood up and extended his hand toward Elena. Elena Martinez, on behalf of this company's management, I apologize for considering dismissing you. And I'm proposing something else. Elena was stunned. I'm offering you a permanent contract with accommodations. Same salary, but with the possibility of partial remote work for your administrative tasks, flexible hours according to your medical needs, and training to evolve toward a position as maintenance and security manager. Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. In exchange, I'd like you to train your eventual replacement the day you wish to retire. To pass on this attention to detail that makes you an irreplaceable employee. Peter handed her a new contract. What do you say? For the first time in weeks, Elena smiled through her tears. 6 months later, Elena Martinez walked through the corridors of Mercury Tower with a different badge. Maintenance and Security Manager was written under her name. Her new functions allowed her to balance her work with her illness. On difficult days, when symptoms manifested more strongly, she worked from home on intervention planning and contractor management. On days when she felt better, she was in the field, supervising teams, training new employees, but most importantly, she had regained her dignity. Elena's story had spread throughout the company, not because she had told it, but because Peter Davis had decided to make it an example. During the monthly meeting with all executives, he had explained his decision. We almost made a grave error, he had declared. We almost sacrificed our best employee on the altar of short-term profitability. He had then detailed all the calculations he had performed, demonstrating that Elena actually represented a profitable investment for the company. But beyond the numbers, we mainly learned something important about ourselves, about what we want to be as a company. This revelation had marked a turning point in the company's culture. Other employees in difficulty had been supported rather than pushed aside. A program for supporting chronic illnesses had even been created. With Elena as consultant, the most spectacular change concerned Peter Davis himself. The man who only saw numbers had rediscovered the importance of humanity in business. He now regularly visited departments, talked with employees, took interest in their personal situations. Elena reminded me of something I had forgotten, he often confided. A company is primarily human beings. If you take care of them, they take care of the company. This philosophy had borne fruit. Productivity had increased, absenteeism had decreased, the work atmosphere had considerably improved. Financial results followed, the company had regained its growth. Isabella had been the first surprised to learn of her mother's promotion. "Mom, you didn't tell me you had problems at work." Elena had then told the whole story to her daughter. The two women had cried together, but these were tears of joy and pride. "You see, Mum, you taught me another lesson in courage. Even sick, even vulnerable, you fought, you're my hero." Isabella had kept her word regarding her thesis. Her work on supporting chronic patients in the professional world had been noticed. She had been invited to present her research at several European conferences. "All of this is thanks to you, Mum. You inspired this subject by living this situation." The two women had grown even closer. Isabella helped her mother understand her illness, optimized her treatments, adapt her daily life. Elena, for her part, supported her daughter through her final months of study. But the story didn't end there. One day, Elena had received an unexpected call. A journalist from a business magazine wanted to interview her about her journey. Peter Davis had spoken about her case during a conference on human management. "Your story inspires many leaders," the journalist had explained. "You represent this change in mentality that companies need." Elena had accepted the interview, but on one condition, that the focus be on solutions, not victimization. "I don't want to be seen as a victim who got lucky," she had specified. "I want to show that it's possible to balance chronic illness and professional life when there's goodwill on both sides." The article had caused a sensation. Elena had received dozens of testimonials from people in similar situations. Some had found the courage to talk to their employer. Others had discovered they had rights they didn't know about. Peter Davis had also been contacted by other companies to share his experience. He had become, without seeking it, an example of ethical management. "Elena saved me," he often admitted. "She prevented me from becoming the type of boss I didn't want to be." 6 months after that dramatic day in the executive office, Elena looked out the window of her new office. She thought about the journey traveled, the trials overcome, the lessons learned. Her illness was indeed progressing, but slowly. The treatments were working well, and most importantly, she had learned to accept it as a part of herself, not as a condemnation. The most beautiful part of it all. Isabella had earned her degree with jury, congratulations. She had been hired in the neurology department of a major Parisian hospital, with a parallel research contract. "Mum, do you realize? In a few years, I might discover new treatments for people like you." Elena was proud, not just of her daughter, but of herself too. She had proven that you can transform a trial into strength, a weakness into opportunity. Her story had become a symbol, that of these millions of people who fight every day to maintain their dignity in the face of illness, to protect their loved ones, to never give up. But Elena knew her victory was fragile. How many other people in her situation hadn't had her luck? How many found themselves dismissed without recourse, abandoned by a system that privileges performance over humanity? That's why she had decided to commit herself. With Peter Davis's agreement, she had become an ambassador for an association helping chronic patients in the workplace. "My fight is just beginning," she said. "I was lucky, but not everyone is. We need to change mentalities, evolve laws, raise awareness among companies." Elena Martinez, the cleaning lady who had almost lost everything, had become a voice that matters in the debate on including sick people in the professional world. In the evening, when she returned home, she often thought about that November day when she thought her life was crumbling. She now realized it was the beginning of a rebirth. The illness had taken certain capacities from her, but it had also revealed strengths she hadn't suspected. The courage to fight, the determination not to accept injustice, the ability to inspire others. Her daughter would soon be able to help her financially. But Elena had understood that money wasn't the essential thing. The essential was keeping her dignity, staying standing in the face of adversity, never giving up on her dreams. Today, when she crossed paths with Peter Davis in the corridors, they exchanged a knowing smile. They both knew they had lived together, a moment that had changed them forever. "Thank you, Elena," he had told her recently. "You taught me that leading a company means first taking care of those who make it live." Elena had replied with her smile that had become famous in the company. "Mr. Davis, we saved each other. You found your humanity again. I kept my dignity." That's real success. This phrase summed up everything. In a world where profitability and humanity are often opposed, Elena and Peter had proven it was possible to reconcile both. Their story continues to inspire. It shows that behind every employee, there's a human being with dreams, fears, battles, and that sometimes a little empathy is enough to transform a tragedy into triumph. Elena Martinez is no longer just a cleaning lady who got lucky. She has become the symbol of all those who refuse to give up, who fight for their dignity, who prove every day that the true wealth of a society is measured by how it treats its most fragile. Her fight continues, for herself, for her daughter, for all those who haven't yet found their voice. Because, as she likes to say, we don't always choose what happens to us, but we always choose how we react to it. Did this story touch you? It reminds us that behind every person in a fragile situation often hides an unsuspected strength. If you know someone living a similar situation, share this video. Sometimes, knowing you're not alone can change everything. And you, leaders, managers, colleagues, remember that a little humanity can transform a company, a life, a destiny. Subscribe for more true stories that give hope, because in every trial lies a possibility to grow. Elena's story proves it. It's never too late to do the right thing.